Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, my grandma dead money in her will. My grandpa's revenge. Sure, tell your kid to bug me about my age. Upstairs neighbor decided to complain about noise we weren't making. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. My grandma dead money in her will. So, I don't know the full story, but I do know the gist of it. My grandma raised her kids with love. She practically spoiled them, and she raised her grandkids too, me and my two sisters. Two of them, my uncle and my dad, became addicts, and the last, my aunt, became estranged. I've got tons of relatives, so I don't know if I've ever met her. If I have, I don't remember her face or name, so let's call her Little Miss J. J left without looking back, and constantly asked my grandmother for money. She hardly repaid Grandma, which was a big mistake, because, surprise surprise, my grandma was on top of every penny that she had. She was the best I've ever seen when it came to handling funds. But, 2 years ago, my grandma was diagnosed with cancer. She worked her butt off her whole life, was the strongest woman on the planet, and nobody got by without paying her their dues. Eventually, my grandma dies. In her will, she gives money to my grandpa, my dad, my uncle, me, and my sisters. Everyone in her family. But, when it comes to Jay, she says, "You still owe me $14. I do not know if she actually somehow did Jay $14 in a will, or just put it in there as a little slap in the face. All Jay was worried about when Grandma died was the money, and she got none of it. I can't be prouder to have a grandma that wouldn't leave this world without the last laugh. Edit, I guess I forgot to include it. Jay is also a drug addict, that's why she needed my grandmother's money constantly. My grandmother was a great woman, and a great mother to me. She raised me well. My grandpa's revenge. Many years ago, my grandpa lived on this street of old houses where one of the neighbors would walk his dog on my grandpa's lawn. The dog would inevitably poop on said lawn and piss my grandpa off. He started coming out to yell at the guy when he was there, telling him to stop letting the dog poop on his lawn. The guy ignored my grandpa, and not one to beat his head against a wall. Grandpa stopped going out to yell at the guy. I did notice he would go out after the guy had left. About a month later, I noticed my grandpa carrying one of those 5-gallon paint buckets across the street while the guy was standing outside about to take his dog on a walk. My grandpa made full eye contact with the guy while my grandpa quietly dumped the contents of the 5-gallon bucket in the middle of the neighbor's lawn. It was completely full of the neighbor's dog's poop. He didn't walk his dog on my grandpa's lawn anymore. Sure, tell your kid to bug me about my age. Let's start with the fact that my brother's wife and I do not get along. Never have, never will. It's mutual, both fault and feelings. Also, she is very sensitive about her age. What she failed to realize is that I'm not. Skip to my 30th birthday and my mom throws a party, including my brother and his family. They have 4 kids, 5, 4, and 1-year-old twins at the time. The kids are playing, we're eating cake, everyone is getting along, and the wife calls over the 4-year to whisper something in his ear. Immediately the kid comes to me and, in typical 4-year-old fashion, yells, "Auntie, guess what?" "What, kiddo?" "Mom says you're 30 now and that's old." My face lit up. I delightedly answered, "Yes, I am. And do you know who's a whole 3 years older than me?" Wide eyes, shaking his head, "You're MOM." Everyone except her had a good laugh. Upstairs neighbor decided to complain about noise we weren't making. Long story short, our upstairs neighbor let her boyfriend move in with her. He seems to be at most about 18 years old. Every single night since he has moved in, he has either called the cops or complained to the landlord that we were making too much noise. Mind you, most of the times of these complaints we were all literally asleep. So we decided to start filing noise complaints back, as they are much louder and constantly waking our toddler up. We tried our best to keep the noise down, but we really have never been that loud, and the prior tenants never had an issue with us, neither did the woman upstairs till her boyfriend moved in. Yesterday was the final straw. Our landlord told us to let him know if their dogs were making too much noise. After listening to their dog yip for 3 hours straight, I decided to say something. Lo and behold, about 20 minutes later the cops are at my door, saying there was a complaint my child had been crying for hours. Mind you, my child hadn't cried all day. So they asked to see my daughter. I show them my toddler, who was clearly content and clearly has not been crying at all, and they go on their way. Moments later, boyfriend upstairs comes stomping as loud as he can inside, saying, "You wanna say that I make too much noise?" and yelling and swearing at us through the floor. We made countless attempts to get him to come downstairs, but he refuses and begins blasting music as loud as he can. We record all of this and send it to our landlord. And then decided to be petty. We get our toddler away from the loudness. My boyfriend is very into music and audio production, and so we have a really high quality and really loud sound system. We proceed to play music as loud as we can once our baby is protected from the sound, which very much drowned out what he was playing. After we stopped, he was silent, and his girlfriend shortly after got home and commenced screaming at him for being how he was. He is very abusive toward her, and we can hear him screaming and throwing things at her all the time. Dude is an overall piece of shit. The icing on the cake is that today the landlord is coming over to tell him that he needs to move out ASAP and is no longer allowed on the property. Overall, a huge win for us. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.